Again, we talk about what they're ready to talk about, so we want our clients to understand that, like, we don't make you come in and tell your story, and, we let you share what you want to share. As far as our adult support groups, we do have several groups, but our adult support group, we are currently doing that via Zoom, and it's going well, but that is for clients who have been coming to counseling for a while. We ask that you come to individual sessions before you start attending a group, but we've been creative in what we've been able to do with, the way we're doing services. So they have an open art studio group. We work with DCFS. We have a group for DCFS clients, all through Zoom currently, because we are not seeing clients in person. But if you ever have any questions about our services, you can call our hotline, and they would be happy to set you up with a client or with a counselor to talk to a counselor about what services we can provide.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. So I think today specifically, we wanted to focus more on child and teen survivors. And so a lot of times we don't think about them when we talk about domestic violence. We think about the two partners and violence, but a lot of times kids are caught up in the middle. And Terry, can you talk about just how prevalent that is in our society?
Sure. So I kind of pulled some statistics that are national statistics. So 15.5 million children living in the United States will experience domestic violence in their home. And 7 million children live in families where there's been severe violence. So that equivalates to like 1 in 15 children are exposed to domestic violence each year. And 90% of these kids are actually seeing like true violence in the home. So those statistics are pretty alarming. We know that it's happening. Last year, our counselors worked with over 200 children, and we had 60 children in our shelter last year. We also, Katie will talk more about this, but we do a lot within our school districts, some of our local school districts, and we provided over 230 counseling sessions to students in the schools that we partnered with last year. So we know that there's children living in this community who are experiencing domestic violence, children who attend our schools. So like with statistics like these, we are committed to helping the children in the communities in which we serve.
Yeah, so a lot of times I think we hear kind of, the kids are resilient and they're going to be just fine no matter what they go through. And while there's a lot of truth to that, like domestic violence in kids have long-term effects. Katie, can you explain what that looks like, how it shows up in kiddos?
Yeah, you're definitely right that children are resilient and they do have the ability to, learn how to cope and change and heal. But, the effects of domestic violence can have a very large impact on children, developmentally, socially, emotionally. And for me, what stands out is how much it affects them at school, which people may not be aware of. I think a child coming from domestic violence is often misunderstood at school. To put it simply, children need to feel safe in order to learn. And if you have a child coming from an abusive home, you have a teacher instructing a lesson to the class, that kid is probably not as engaged into the lesson because they're thinking about the bad thing that happened last night, or they're worried about, what is going to happen when I go home, after school. We know that domestic violence conditions children into being in a constant state of, being hyper alert to threats. And this is a problem because, a child responding to what they perceive as a threat or a violation looks a lot like disruptive, difficult, out of control, defiant behavior. So these are the kids that get the reputation of being the troublemakers in school. And then they could go on to be diagnosed as emotionally, behaviorally disordered. So when you're coming from a home with abuse and you're going to school where they label you broken and disabled or disordered, and you can imagine what that does to a person's just life trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important that sometimes, the trauma that these kids experience show up differently than what we think it would. But we also want to be really careful and say that it doesn't have to be this way, right? Like we know that when kiddos get help, we can have better outcomes. So Terry, can you talk a little bit about what we do here at the agency for kids?
Sure. So our children's program, we work with children between the ages of 5 and 17. And again, we want to provide a safe space for these kids, you know, to be able to talk about what's happened. You know, it's really difficult sometimes for our kids to feel like have the words verbally to know what to say. And that's why, you know, having art therapists and play therapy is so important. We provide DV education to our kiddos. And so kind of just educating them on, you know, what has happened and, you know, the cycle of abuse and just the different types of abuse, giving them some like just basic DV knowledge. We safety plan with our kids all the time, you know, how to stay safe if they're still living with the abusive parent. That can look very, like Katie said, that can be very scary going home to that every day. We want to be that safe person. Again, we're doing things differently because of COVID, but we have platforms where we can work with kids and provide art therapy through Zoom. So our goal is to build that trust, help our kids heal. And again, that family counseling piece is such an important part of what we do.
Yeah, I think that's great. So we keep mentioning art therapy because it's kind of a big deal around here. We prioritized it with 3 great art therapists. But for somebody that doesn't come from a counseling world or that doesn't really understand what art therapy is, Dominique, can you kind of flesh that out for people? Let them know what that means.
Sure. It is a really unique way of working with clients. It's really can be fun. It can be difficult. It's another way for kind of what Terry was saying to process a really potentially scary or difficult experience that even with younger children as young as 5, they may not have the words to articulate what happened or may not feel comfortable talking about it. So we're able to use art or play, and that's really how children kind of work a lot of the time anyway. And so it's very natural for them. It helps to build a relationship with a secure adult that they maybe haven't had before or don't have many of in their life. And so we just kind of help in that direction, creating a safe space as well with the art as a kind of different object within the room that they can use or play. And then, you know, having the art materials, it's also can serve just as a distraction for kids or adults whenever, you know, one of the first examples I remember hearing about art therapy was there was a young boy and his parents were getting divorced, and he really had a hard time talking about it and didn't want to tell the therapist about it. And she gave him a ball of clay and he started playing with the clay, and he didn't make anything. It wasn't a beautiful piece of work to hang on the wall or fire in the kiln, but then he started talking and he started crying, and you know, it was just something to kind of get his mind on something else momentarily, and then he felt like he could talk about it. And I know in our sessions I've definitely seen that happen, or you know, kids get really excited about things they make as well. If they are proud of it, it can help build self-esteem. So it really has a lot of really unique benefits, and it's a great way to engage with clients who have experienced DV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really cool that it's something that we offer so rapidly to everyone that wants it. Dominique, in thinking about who we serve and how we help, like there are a lot of myths, kind of we referred to it earlier about kids in general and domestic violence. Would you kind of like, what are some of the ones that you most want busted out? You know, can you talk a little bit?
Yeah, there's definitely, I think a lot of people would say, and even we hear our clients say it, the mothers, which some of it is probably ignorance and some of it is probably wishful thinking that abuse only affects children who are directly exposed to it. Say they were the victim of abuse or they actually saw it and witnessed it, but that's unfortunately not true. The research has shown, you know, even if it's a very small child, even a baby that is hearing things that are happening in the other room, they're gonna, in their bodily reactions, you'll be able to tell that they're being affected. They might have trouble eating, they might have trouble you know, using the restroom, just even in their body, they're experiencing things that they won't have words for maybe many years. And they may never be able to articulate because it's just something that they were exposed to. So that is definitely something that we try to, you know, educate on and just let parents and clients know that everyone is exposed in some capacity. So trying to get them all the help that they need. And we really encourage seeing the kids of any age that we see from 5 on up. And another one is that only older children who can remember the abuse are affected, which is also a myth that we kind of have, and research has kind of debunked that. There's a lot of different statistics, and one is that male children who witness DV are 3 times more likely to abuse their partners as adults. So once you see something and are exposed to it, that kind of becomes normal for you. And so as you get older or younger, they're all exposed to it, and that's something they take with them, and it impacts their relationships for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dominique. So kind of just switching gears just a little bit, when we talk about child, we kind of think younger, middle school or younger. But we also, in youth victims, we also need to talk about teens, right? So we know that teen dating violence is on the rise in our country. And Katie, I know you do a lot of work inside that age group. Can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we know that about 1 in 10 teens will be in a violent dating relationship. So if you're a student, if it doesn't happen to you, chances are it'll happen to a friend or somebody you know. And, as a teenager, I think they could be very reluctant to maybe ask out for help, or talk to their parents. But, luckily in Illinois, we have, a really great law where youth ages 12 to 17 have the right to get 8 counseling sessions up to 90 minutes long with a counselor without parental consent, which is really great. So we're, even if they aren't comfortable maybe talking to parents or their teachers or somebody they know, like having somebody else come in who's not connected to their world, I think is really helpful in helping them open up. So, letting schools know that we're out there. And, one thing we've been doing is trying to really reach more people virtually. So we're hoping to expand and reach more schools too.
That's awesome. So when I hear people talk about teen dating violence, it's especially I'm the mother of 2 teens, and that's a little scary. And so at this stage, and teenagers tend to pull away from their parents at this age. How can you identify that they might be in an abusive relationship, or maybe their relationship is heading into unhealthy territory?
I think notice changes in behaviors. Are they losing interest in things that they once loved to do? Are they spending all of their time with their boyfriend or girlfriend? I think too, one of the biggest red flags we have is for an abusive personality is that jealousy and possessiveness. And I think a teenager or anyone really, that can feel really flattering at first, so just making sure that they're still being connected to their social circles and, not losing who they are too.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. And then so if I do see that my kids are headed into unhealthy waters or, any sort of territory, what are some of the things that we can do to help guide them through that? How do you intervene?
So a lot of our teen referrals, our student referrals, come from school social workers or school counselors, and even teachers. Teachers, students may open up more to a favorite teacher, and so them reaching out for more information on how they can support them. I think it's really important not to try to tell the student what to do or tell the teen what to do. It's more letting them know that you are there if they need to talk, that you do maybe have some concerns, is everything okay? Because we know with teens, if you approach them with the attitude of let me tell you, you shouldn't be doing this, that's not going to go over well. So I think, for parents, I think it's relying on your educators, your school system, but also knowing that is something that our school or our counselors can talk to you about. We do try to get out to the school. We do many groups. I did a group at a local high school on healthy relationships, and the girls in my group, most of them had been in in a relationship that had been violent. And so letting schools know that that is a resource for them if they're seeing that in their schools, or for parents, we can meet them at school and they can be in a group with other students who are maybe experiencing the same thing.
And there's a really great website, loveisrespect.org, I believe is the handle. And it's really focused on teen dating, and there's a hotline specifically for that as well. So if it is a teen that is experiencing it but doesn't feel safe or comfortable talking to someone they know, or they just have limited options, that's always a really great resource as well, and lots of different talking points and for adults and teens as well. So
yeah, there's even quizzes on there that they can take that it'll help you to determine if you're in a relationship that maybe isn't healthy. So yeah, that's a great resource.
Yeah, so I will link that resource up in the comments, along with a few other resources for anybody watching after this video is completed. And then, so just kind of, as we wrap up, we know that kind of the landscape during this pandemic, it looks a little different than it did last year or the year before. And so, Katie, specifically, how does that show up in kids that are exposed to domestic violence? We know this is a tough time for everyone, but it's an especially tough time for kids right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone is really feeling the stress of COVID in one way or another. Anxiety is very heightened, and, people are isolated in their homes, and they're away from their support systems, which are really important. So, we've been really working with our school districts to continue to provide services for our students, whether they're during virtual school or, a hybrid school, or still going on site. So, so right now we get referrals from our schools, and, the guidance counselors and social workers have been really helpful in helping the student get set up. If they have to do counseling at school, then they will provide the student with a safe space and, the computer so we can Zoom together, or if it's they're able to do it at home, being able to help kind of set that up as well. So, and at our agency, we've done a lot to be able to do this. We've developed a new safety plan for virtual telehealth services, and our therapy has been a little bit more difficult, I think, to do over Zoom, but I think we're constantly coming up with ideas of how to continue with that and provide those services. So we're doing what we can, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think that is an important thing to reiterate that we've tried to state in all these lunch and learns, is that if you know that you need help, or somebody that needs help, or maybe you're a friend of someone and you just want to talk through how to help them, all of our services are 100% available. You can reach us just by calling the hotline, which I'll also link below. And we have not stopped providing services to survivors at any point during this pandemic, and we are committed to continually safely providing services. So I think this has been a great conversation. Does anybody have any final thoughts they want to share or piece together?
When we talk about kids, I just want to say really quickly, and for all of our clients, children are so resilient. And I think that that's such a huge piece of what we see in counseling. And it's just, it's so rewarding for us, to be able to be a part of that. And the resiliency and helping parents to see that the cycle can be broken. We see that, we see that these families do move on and they do move forward. And so for me, that is just a huge reward in being able to witness that with our families. Like Dominique said, this job can be difficult, it can be hard, but it is also very rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is awesome. All right, so we are going to wrap it up for our fourth Lunch and Learn. We will come again next week for our final October Lunch and Learn, and we will be joined by some of our partners that we work with in the communities we serve. So we are looking forward to telling you how our approach affects the entire community. So thanks, guys. I appreciated chatting with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.